ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to AS Astrology. So previously we discussed about Rahu Mahadasha and today we'll be discussing about Ketu Mahadasha. So before starting and going ahead with what does Ketu means and how does Ketu behaves in its Mahadasha, we need to see that how we need to judge Ketu's Mahadasha. See, Rahu and Ketu are the nodes of moon. So first of all, we always need to see the dashas. Of course, we need to see the dashas and its placements from the ascendant, but it is necessary to see Rahu and Ketu's Mahadasha to judge it from moon chart specifically, because these are nodes of moon. And the other thing is that since these are shadow planets, they are going to behave like the sign they are sitting in. Basically, what Rahu and Ketu does is that they wear the jacket of the planet in whose sign they are sitting in. So they are going to act like their dispositors. For example, if Ketu is in the sign of Taurus, it is going to behave like Venus. If Ketu is in the sign of Scorpio, it is going to behave like Mars. And from Mars, I need to mention one more thing, that Ketu will always behave primarily like Mars. Regardless of in whichever sign it is in, that solely depends on a person's particular horoscope, but Ketu's nature is very much similar to Mars. Ketu is violent, Ketu is sharp, Ketu behaves much like Mars. Just like Mars is a soldier and Mars acts like protective energy, Ketu also behaves like a protective energy. You will always see Ketu in the ascendant. Such people are very critical of their own looks, of their own body, and they are very protective of themselves. If Ketu is in the 4th house, you will be very protective towards your mother, or you'll try to protect your emotions from everyone, including your mother. So that's simply the nature of Ketu. Now the other thing you'll see is, like, for example, let me quote an example to see better results of Rahu and Ketu. You need to see wherever Ketu is placed, in whichever house Ketu is placed, in what sign Ketu is placed, and wherever that sign lord and nakshatra lord is placed. For example, if you have Ketu in the ascendant in the sign of Taurus, now this Ketu is behaving like Venus. And suppose Venus is in the 6th house in the sign of Libra, and Ketu is in the nakshatra of Rohini, and Moon is also in the sign of Libra in the 6th house. Now you will see the results of 1st house, since Ketu is there, since 3rd house is ruled by Moon and Ketu is present in the nakshatra of Rohini, which is ruled by Moon, and then 6th house. So 1, 3rd and 6th houses, these are the houses which will give you the most result in Ketu's Mahadasha. And of course, one thing you need to be aware of, that basically a Mahadasha is extended over a number of years. Ketu Mahadasha is there for 7 years. So you will see these results dispersed over 7 years. There is the most say of Antar and Pratyantar Dasha. Mahadasha is actually the overview of those years. Now we need to understand that what does Ketu represents. Ketu is the planet of moksha. It is moksha karka. It is the planet of detachment. It is the planet of spirituality. It is the planet of competitive behavior as well. More than any other planet except Mars, Ketu is actually one of the planets that makes a person quite critical of things, quite firm with their belief system, and violent and competitive as well. Because I mentioned that Ketu behaves a lot like Mars. And you see, Rahu and Ketu are basically one body. Ketu is a headless planet. It doesn't have head. So it is like being in Ketu, or being a Ketu personality, it's like being in a black hole and not knowing what to do. Just you are straight away going in that black hole, exploring that black hole. So that's why Ketu is also known as mad scientist. A person with prominent Ketu positions, if Ketu is in moksha houses, that person has that abilities, that researcher abilities. That's why you'll always see that the nakshatras of Ketu, which is Ashwini, Magha and Mula, three of these nakshatra are quite transformative and quite research oriented nakshatras. Ketu is also a planet of sacrifices, a planet of healing as well. Ketu is as well a planet of realizations. So you'll see whenever Ketu is transiting over particular houses or particular planets, you tend to realize a lot of things about that area. If Ketu is actually in the first house, that can of course bring a lot of problems in your life. That can make you very self-critical, and that can also bring depressive tendencies. But Ketu in the first house actually makes you realize a lot of things about your personality. Now, other thing you'll see with Ketu is whenever Ketu is transiting over your 12th house, it can bring spiritual awakening or spiritual realizations in your life. If it is transiting on Venus, it can actually bring a lot of realizations regarding your love matters or romantic affairs. Now, other thing you'll see is that more people are actually quoted like that Ketu is the planet of detachment. It makes you very spiritual when its Mahadasha comes in. But you will see that Ketu Mahadasha actually makes a person quite career oriented, quite competitive in the 7 years of Ketu. A person tends to explore a lot in terms of career in Ketu Mahadasha, because a person is, ready to compete during that time. In terms of spirituality, you will see that it brings a lot of self-awareness and a lot of spiritual awareness. A person is detached from the material aspect and is connected to go within. So Ketu Mahadasha does brings in transformation, and it does brings in self-awareness, sacrifices and career orientation. Now, other thing you'll see is that during Ketu Mahadasha, a person naturally becomes quite fearful of things. Because you see, Ketu is a headless planet and Ketu is a black hole. So there are a lot of fears that a person starts reviving in their head, starts feeling fearful about everything. You'll see Ketu is actually a lot like Mars. Just like Mars is a protector, Mars is an energy who wants to protect, who wants to be a soldier and fight for things. Ketu will also try to protect everything. So wherever Ketu is present, you'll become fearful, and out of that fear, you'll try to protect that house. Another thing you'll see is that a person becomes highly intuitive. This is the best time to realize and see a lot of things. Ketu does bring in sacrifices as well. And if Ketu is present in the houses like 8th house, 12th house, somehow associated with the lords of 6, 8, 12, and even in the 5th house, a person can undergo surgery. I have actually seen this, that if Ketu is present in the 5th house and Ketu Mahadasha is going on, or if Ketu is present with the 5th lord, a person undergoes C-section. A female undergoes C-section. And if during that time, because you see, if you are already going through a Mahadasha, the transit of that particular Mahadasha is going to affect you big time. So if Ketu is transiting during these 7 years, if Ketu is transiting your 5th house, you can have C-section if you are a female. If through 6th house, 8th house, 12th house, you can undergo surgeries. Because you see, Ketu is a sharp object just like Mars. It is a knife. It does bring that detachment. It does bring that cut. The other thing you'll see is that Ketu does also brings in realistic and vivid dreams. Because of the intuition part, you will face a lot of dreams. And the best remedy or best thing to do in these 7 years is to concentrate more on your career. The more competition you'll have in your career, the more at peace a person will feel. And the other thing is that a person should actually be involved in some spiritual practices. I'm not talking about like any major spiritual practices. You can even go into meditation just to calm your mind down, just to have that vision. Because you see, Rahu and Ketu needs to connect in these Mahadasha, because otherwise you will see just the effect of one planet, and Rahu is incomplete without Ketu, and Ketu is incomplete without Rahu. And you see, Ketu is basically the body, so body needs the head to operate in that way. A person also becomes a perfectionist in the Ketu Mahadasha. A person wants everything to be systematically, everything to look perfect in Ketu Mahadasha. Another thing you'll observe with Ketu is that during Ketu Mahadasha, a person becomes quite critical of things. A person criticizes a lot to the other person. That's why such people become quite outspoken. And of course, Rahu Ketu behaves extremely well if they are placed alone, because Rahu Ketu are shadow planets and they start behaving like the planet they are sitting in. So if that Ketu is placed alone, it will truly be able to give its significance. Otherwise, it obviously manipulates according to this planet it's sitting with. Okay guys, so this was my analysis on Ketu Mahadasha. I hope this was helpful. And if you guys would like to have your personal consultations from me, check out the link below, www.anmollastrology.com, and under the consultation section, you can book a personal reading for yourself. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.